I went on holiday to a little place called Dingle in Ireland, and it was really pretty and full of lots of people from all around the world, lots of young people, lots of backpackers. Anyway, I went to this pub for some lunch one afternoon, and didn't eat it all. It was sort of like mashed potatoes and, you know, vegetables and pie or whatever. And was feeling quite tired after I'd had this lunch, so I was a little bit sort of dozy, but was on holidays and was staying in a B&B, so couldn't go back to have a lie down. So I went and strolled around some shops, and as I was walking around these shops, I was looking at different bits and pieces. I managed to lose my sunglasses, and didn't realise until probably an hour or so later that I hadn't got my sunglasses. So when I realised my sunglasses were gone, decided to do a little trek back, retrace all my steps to see if I could find where they were. So I went into the pub, and I went to the toilet at the pub, and I asked the people behind the bar, and I went to some shops I'd been in, and eventually I went into this shop that sold lots of different things, you know, bric-a-brac, touristy things, postcards, lollipops, balloons, everything that you can think of. It's really, really tacky. And they said they hadn't seen my sunglasses, and I was like, okay. So I went over to a stand that had sunglasses for sale and decided I was going to buy some, and saw my sunglasses for sale on this stand and was like, hang on, these are my sunglasses. And I knew they're my sunglasses because I always chew the arm of the sunglasses, so they were really bitten, plus the little piece where the arm is attached to the eye has got screws, and one screw was longer than the other because they'd broken and had them repaired. So I knew they were definitely my sunglasses. So I picked them up and I took them over to the counter, where, you know, over to the till, and said, these are actually my sunglasses that I'm looking for. And they were like, yeah, right. And I was going, no, these are my sunglasses. They're all chewing on the end, I can see, because I always put my sunglasses in my mouth. And look, if you look, there's like one screw that's longer than the other. So I know that they're mine. And anyway, the girl went away and she got somebody else to come back, and they were like, I'm not really sure. I was like, it's really obvious, look, it's really obvious. In the end, she just sort of said, okay, I'll give you the benefit, I would take them. Didn't apologise, and I was like, and was still doubting the fact they were actually mine. So, but anyway, I got them back, and yeah, that's my little story.
I woke up one day at 8 o'clock, and I got up and I brushed my teeth, and I had my breakfast, and I had orange juice, and it tasted disgusting because I just brushed my teeth, and it always tastes disgusting when you brush your teeth. I have orange juice, okay? So then I got up and I went in next door and got a lift to school, and I went in and I went to my English class, and then to my French class, and then to my religion class, and then I got my friend to write me a note to say I was going to the doctor, and then I went up to my vice principal and gave her my note to say I was going to the doctor, even though I wasn't. And my friend also had a note saying he was going to the doctor, but he really wasn't. So we were both going to the doctor, but we really weren't. And then we got the bus into town, and then we went around town for a while, and then met our 3 friends. And then we walked around town for a while and convinced them to go to this crazy storytelling thing. And then we walked down the street and then saw it was closed. And then I rang my friend, and then in the middle of ringing my friend, this beautiful blonde lady came out, and I saw her and I was like, oh my god, it's the storytelling lady. So then we went inside, and then we got free tea. And then I told my story, and that was it.
Yeah, so some years ago my parents came, and then I joined them in Paris. It was for 3 days in Paris, 3 days in London, 3 days in Rome. And then they were back to Japan. So that's why, you know, the Japanese people always have to take a picture as many as they can, and then it's just because it's such a short trip. So they have to have a whole album of their traveling, I guess. Well, that's what other people say, I don't know. But you know, because the caricature or stereotype of a Japanese tourist is always having a camera, and always taking picture. because they don't have much time to really enjoy the place, I guess. That's what I think. Because it's not like Europe. In Japan, they can't really have many holidays a year. So if it's 1 week, is very good. So I was on the bus touring in Paris with my parents, and we got off bus, and there is a kind of garden or somewhere in a big place in front of Eiffel Tower or something, or the place where people can see Eiffel Tower with a quite good angle or something. And then photographer was already waiting with a tripod, photograph and everything, a camera and everything. So basically no time to waste for the trip. So therefore the photographer was already there waiting for the bus to come, and then take a picture and then off you go. So like everyone will go on the bus again, and then went to the next place to have a sightseeing.
Maybe two there.
I does a bit of busking, they would stay to me. I does a bit of busking.
Oh, you should have kept it up.
That's grand, love, and God bless you. Thanks very much. Thank you. And we can get the draw down for a couple of seconds. I went to my doctor this morning, and I said, beep beep, and he said to me, what is the matter? And I said, I'm training to be a motor car, and he said, watch the traffic lights. I write poetry, you see, my friend
Okay. When I was at college, a long, long time ago, at dance college, and one of my friends at college pulled out a thing in the magazine. It was an advert for a summer job. They wanted a choreographer. So I went to the audition in this really seedy little place in Soho, and the guy came up to me and said, yes, we'd like you to be the choreographer, and you're going to go to Italy. I thought, that's nice. And then a friend of mine who's also at college, she got the job as well as one of the dancers. So I was going to have 20 dancers and put the show on, and we were going to be in Italy, and we had 3 weeks to put the show, no, 2 weeks to put the show together, and then supposedly do the show every night for 2 months, I think it was, for the summer. And when we got to Italy, they flew us out there, and we got to Italy, and they took us into this town, and then there was this huge, big building that had no windows all the way around the bottom. The only windows were up the top, and there was one door going in. And as we went in, they said they had to take our passports. And I was thinking, this is a bit strange. And, you know, it all seemed all above board and everything. And he had a talk with us, and he showed us to the rooms, and then we noticed there was a guard on the door. So this is getting weirder. And so that, he gave us a talk, and then he said, okay, if you take everybody to the club where you're going to be performing, and start rehearsals. So I went in and I thought, well, I'll just work with the first 10 dancers first. So I said, okay, the other 10 you can go off and explore. And we started to look at the stage, and I wasn't quite sure what kind of costumes or anything that were about to be produced. So it was, you know, he just played us some music, and he'd said he wanted this kind of choreography. And I was a contemporary dancer, you know, all that Martha Graham. So then he said that night, okay, come to the club and see what it's like at the atmosphere. And so we went to the club, and we're suddenly going, there's a lot of men here, and not very many women. I think we're actually the only women here. Oops. And then, so I thought, this is very strange, I need to find out a little bit more, but I didn't speak Italian, and everybody all of a sudden couldn't speak English. So the next day we went in and carried on choreographing, and then I wanted to have a meeting with him, and he wasn't there the whole time, and he wasn't there that night. And all of a sudden this kind of like this mafia came in and wanted to know where this guy was, because he owed them a lot of money. And basically he had sold us to him, to this mafia guy, and we were going to be shipped off to Arabia as sex slaves. It's like, I don't even have my passport, shit. So the next day I thought, I'm not staying here. But I didn't want to arouse any suspicions. So I said to my friend, look, do you want to come and try and escape? And we're going to go and get the FBI or the CIA or whatever it was. We're going to try and rescue the rest of them. And so we couldn't pack all our stuff up or else they would know. So I packed as much as I could and left everything else in the wardrobe, and then went downstairs and said I'd needed my passport to go and get some money out of the bank. And then we ran to the train station, and on the way we met him, and he was like, come and have a coffee with me, I want to know how things are going. And we were, where were you last night? There was all these men looking for you. And he gave us this story, and we were like, just looking at our watch, because the train's going to go in 5 minutes time, we've got to go. We went, we've got to go, bye. And ran down the train, got on the train, and it zoomed off through Italy. And once we were out of Italy, we were like, yes, and we were drinking. And then we had to get to the ferry. I think it was in Brussels. We had to take the train to Brussels. And we got on the ferry at Brussels, and when we got onto the ferry, we went to see the captain, because we had these pictures of him with lots of different haircuts and different outfits, and he was obviously a very dodgy character. And so the captain then phoned for the, I think, what is it CIA or FBI in this country? I can never remember. They met us off the boat. They met us off the boat, and they took all our statements, and then they sent this whole brigade over to rescue all the other girls, to bring them back so they wouldn't be sold as sex slaves to Arabia.
As well as Pattern Day, there is one other religious observance of long ago worth recalling. I'm thinking of Christmas. No word of a lie, but 'twas something to write home about when I was small. The way we looked forward to twilight on Christmas Eve, for when darkness fell, it was Christmas night, the greatest night of all the year. We youngsters would be up with the crack of dawn that morning to have the house ready for the night. Berry holly would have to be cut and brought in to deck out the windows, the top of the dresser, the back of the settee, and the clevy. We'd bring in ivy too, and put a sprig of laurel behind the pictures, above the lintel of the door, and around the fireplace. But we wouldn't overdo it, or if we did, my mother would make us cut it down a bit, reminding us that she'd like to feel she was in our own house for Christmas and not in the middle of a wood. Well, the transformation we could bring about in the kitchen with all that greenery. But we weren't finished yet. The Christmas candles had to be prepared. These were of white tallow, nearly as thick as the handle of a spade and nearly as tall. In some houses, they'd scoop out a hole in a turnip and put the candle sitting into it. A big crock we'd use, we'd put the candle sitting into that and pack it around with sand. If you hadn't sand, bran or pollard would do. When the candle was firmly in position, we'd spike sprigs of holly or laurel into the sand around the candle. And we had colour paper too to put around the outside of the crock to take the bare look of it. And with that same colour paper, the girls in the family, if they were anyway handy, could make paper flowers to decorate the holly. Then we would cap it all with a length of young ivy and spiral it up around the candle. It looked lovely. That done, we would go through the same manoeuvres until there was a candle in a crock for every window in the house. Then we'd be praying for night to fall, for you couldn't see the right effect until the candles were lit. That honour would fall to the youngest in the house. My father would lift him up, saying, in the name of the Father and of the Son. And when the child had blessed himself, he would put the lighting spill to the candle. And from that candle, all the other candles would be lit around the house. And we'd be half daft with excitement, running from the rooms into the kitchen and out into the yard to see what the effect the house had from the outside. Then we'd turn and try to name the neighbours' houses as the bunches of lights came on. 2 windows here and 3 windows there across the dark countryside and away up to the foot of the hills. And as sure as anything, someone would be late, and we'd rush into my mother saying, "Faith, there's no light yet in Russacrew. Get on your knees," my mother would say, the time she'd pick for the rosary. Just as the salt ling was ready and the white onion sauce and the potatoes steaming over the fire. But I suppose there'd be no religion in the world only for the women. The rosary in our house wouldn't end at 5 decades. Not at all. After the Hail, Holy Queen, my mother would branch into the trimmings. Come, Holy Ghost, send down those beams which sweetly flow in silent streams. She'd pray for everyone in sickness and in need, the poor soul and the sinful soul that was at that very moment trembling before the judgment seat above. She'd pray for the sailor on the seas. Protect him from the tempest, O Lord, and bring him safely home, and the lone traveller on the highway. And of course, our immigrants, and last of all, the members of our own family. God bless us and save us all. St. Patrick, Bridget and Columkill, guard each wall. May the Queen of Heaven and the angels bright keep us and our house from all harm this night. Our knees would be aching as we got up off the floor, and 'twould take my father a while to get the prayer arch out of his back. Well, we wouldn't be sitting down to the supper when my mother would bless herself again, a preliminary to grace before meals, and you'd hardly blame my father for losing his patience. "Is it in a monastery?" "We are," he'd say. "Haven't we done enough praying for one night?" After the supper, there'd be Christmas cake for anyone with a sweet tooth. My father never look at that. His eye would be on the big earthenware jar below the dresser, and 'twould be a great relief to him when my mother would say to one of us, "Go out there, one of you, and tell the neighbouring men to come in for a while." It was the custom that night, Nullag Vor, big Christmas, for the men to visit each other's houses. The women were too busy to be bothered. They had their own night, Nullag Naman, for making tapes. In a while's time, the men had come, and at the first lag in the conversation, my father would take the cork off the jar and spill out a few cups of porter. And the men, by the way, not noticing what was happening. And then when they get the cups, all surprised, they'd say, "What's this? What's this for?" "Go on, take it," my father would say. "'Tis Christmas night, men, and more look to us." Then the men's faces would light up, and lifting their cups, they'd say, "Happy Christmas, Ned, happy Christmas, everyone." "Same to ye," my father would say. "May we all be alive again this time 12 months. And my mother, who was never very happy in the presence of strong drink, would direct her gaze in the direction of the Christmas candle and say, the grace of God to us all.
Joo. No, tämä tapahtui joskus likimain esikomputtereisen aikana, joka tapauksessa ennen internetin käyttöönottoa, eli tästä nyt on aikaa muutama vuosikymmen. Minä nautiskelin silloin jotain muutakin kuin teetä ja torvisoittoa, eli käytin vähän liiankin runsaasti alkoholia. Ja niinpä olohuoneenani olikin asuinkerrostaloani vastapäisessä talossa sijainnut korttelikapakka, jossa kävi sitten laidasta laitaan porukkaa, ja me kantaporukka tunnettiin suurin piirtein toinen toisen. No eräänä päivänä sitten sinne saapui nuori komea mies, jolla oli yllään punakirjava neulepusero. Mä kiinnitin siihen puseroon huomiota, koska mä neulon itse. Niin mä katsoin, että kauniit kuviot ja komea mies. Ja aloin iskeä tarinaa sitten tämän miehen kanssa. Ja jotenkin hämärästi minä muistan, että tämä mies poistui ja minä lähdin sitten hänen peräänsä. Ja nyt jälkeenpäin minä muistan, että mä olin ehkä käynyt vessassa siinä aikana, kun mä olin jutellut, eli mun lasini oli ollut vartioimatta. No, seuraavan kerran minä havahdun töölöläisen asuinkerrostalon porraskäytävästä, noin 2 asunnon välistä, puoliistuvasta asennosta. Mitään ei ilmeisesti ollut minulle niin fyysisesti tapahtunut, vaatteet oli kaikki kohdallaan. Ja mä katselin ja ihmettelin ja poistuin sitten, että en tiennyt, että miten minä olin siihen taloon päässyt yleensä. No siihen aikaan ei ehkä kaikkien talojen ovet ollut samalla tavalla lukittu kuin nykyään. Oli siis päiväaika tai iltapäivä, että yö ei ollut vielä. No, kaikkien hassuin juttu on, ja tämä mä vannon todeksi. Sitä 1000 markan seteliä, mikä oli mun lompakossa, ei varmasti ollut siellä silloin, kun mä lähdin kotoa. Eli mun rahat oli lisinnyt 1000 markalla. Ja vielä oudompaa, tätä tyyppiä ei sen koommin nähty siinä ravintolassa, eikä kuulemma häntä ollut kukaan muukaan aikaisemmin nähnyt. Ja tarina on varmasti tosi.
Shall I start? Okay. I'm living in Paris. My name is Claudia, I'm Swiss. And often people ask me, how comes that you live in Paris? And I was thinking a lot about it, and I think it starts when I was about 15, 16 years old. I was watching in a magazine for young people, and I was looking on all the pictures, and then I saw a photograph of a guy, and I immediately fall in love. Oh, he's so sweet, he's so funny, he's so nice eyes, and such a sweet smile, and all this stuff. And I was reading the article about this, what's written on the subject, and it was about how homosexual guys live in Switzerland. And I said, oh, what a pity. And he was on the picture with another guy, so I said, oh, what a pity, he's homosexual actually. Not even a future boyfriend for mine. But I was keeping this photo because I said, oh, he's wonderful. And years after, I started to do theater workshops, and I met a guy who was quite sympathically, and I think 1 or 2 days later we went to a party, and he said, oh, we will meet my brother, he will come as well. And I saw Stefan, what's his name, close to his brother, and I was saying, I can't believe it. I know you. You are in the cupboard under my mattress. There's a picture I found when I was 15 years old, and I was falling in love with you. And I realized that on this picture he was Stefan with his brother, and said, how comes? You are homosexual. He said, no, a friend of mine, he's photographer, they asked him to bring a photograph with 2 guys on it, and they said, I give you £10 if you sit here in the field with your brother, and I went to some pictures. And he said, no problem. So I said, I'm not Guy, this is your brother, and you have no girlfriend? He said, no. And I said, oh, wonderful. And we went out together. And I was really, really in love with him. But wherever I went, everybody told me, oh, his ex-girlfriend, she was so nice, she was so beautiful, she was so kind, she was so sweet. And I was really fed up. I said, oh, I hate this girl, I hate her, without knowing her, you know. And once he said, oh, I think on this party you will meet Monica, my ex-girlfriend. I said, I don't want to meet her, I hate her. But finally I met her, and very quick it became my best girlfriend. But she went to Paris for studies, and I went often to Paris to visit her and said, oh, I would like to stay with you in Paris. I'm dreaming to coming to Paris to stay with you in Paris. And once she called me and said, there's a job for you in Paris. Come. And I said, okay, I'm there. In 2 days I will be in Paris for the first interview. And I got my job in Paris, and we found a tiny, little, small apartment in the middle of Paris, and that's how I arrived in Paris. And I'm still living. It's like 13 years ago. I'm still living in this tiny little spot in Paris. And sometimes that it starts with this magazine when I fall in love to this guy. I'm supposed to be homosexual.
This is a Limerick rugby story, and Limerick is seen as the home of rugby in Ireland, and it's a very traditional, passionate engagement with the sport, and all the clubs have their different parishes and communities that support them. So I played for Young Munsters, and my father played for them in 1938 when they won, the last time they won the cup, until I was playing. Unfortunately they didn't win it when I was playing, they almost did. But Young Munsters, to everybody's surprise, got to the final of the All-Ireland League. It was becoming the best team in Ireland in 1991 or 2, I forget which. So there was huge excitement, and they have the biggest following of any rugby club in Ireland. So there were hundreds and thousands going up to the match, and the trains were full. And we have quite colourful supporters, and one of them is Dodo Redden, who's a spinster, and she lived in a house alone except for all her dogs. She had something like 10 or 15 dogs. And for the big matches she used to select the best behaved dogs as their reward to bring them to the match in a pram. And she'd dress them up in the colours of the club and wheel them out to the match, and she'd be talked to and waved and cheered at by all the supporters. So she arrived up on the train with her pram and her dogs for the match, and she got on the train no problem because all the staff on the train are Young Munster supporters. And they also brought the goat, who's the mascot of the team, on the train. But when they got to Dublin, they couldn't get her on any transport because the buses or the taxis wouldn't take them, so they had to stop a coal truck and pay the guy money to take the goat and Dodo and her pram and her dogs up in the back of the coal truck. And they went out to Lansdowne Road, this big stadium where the match was on, and they wouldn't let her in. So I arrived at the scene at this point, and she was at the turnstile with the pram and a big crowd of supporters. And the guy at the turnstile was saying, "You can't come in here, missus, there are no dogs allowed in the stadium." And all the supporters were saying, "Do you know who she is? She's Dodo Redden." So I don't know who she is, she still can't come in. "Well, I will tell you this, if she doesn't get in, there'll be no game, because we're not playing without Dodo." So eventually he conceded, and the pram and the dogs were lifted over the turnstile, and Dodo was let in. And she arrived into the stadium and walked around the edge of the pitch to the acclaim of all the supporters. And she went over to the far side and she went to the back of the terraces and she set up her pram with the dogs. And a policeman came over and he said, "Excuse me, Mrs. There are no dogs allowed here. You'll have to go around the back until the game is over." And Dodo said, "Listen here, Gary, them dogs came all the way up from Limerick to see this match and they're not going home without seeing it." And they did see it.
Okay, so I was 10 years old and I was walking on the street, and at the first of all I would like to go to a place where there is many games, many games for people, you know, you like the big the big wheel, you know, and cars with auto push, you know, many things like this. And I was very enjoyed to go there. And in the way I was walking, and I saw a man, very big man, long hair, tattoo everywhere. He said, "Hey, come on, boy, come on." And I said, I don't know this man. I don't want to go with this man. He said, your mother wants to see you." And it was perhaps 7 years I didn't see her. I was in a place, you know, since I was perhaps 3 years, I was in many family, and after in a place, I don't know the name in English for that. It's a place where many child are, you know, separate from their parents. And I wondered me and said, why not? I crossed the road and my mother was in a bar. So when she see me, she take me in her hand and kiss me and said, "Do you remember me?" I said, "Yes." And she saw me a tattoo with my name in his arms and the name of my sister too. And she offered me a drink. It was a lemonade or something like that. I don't remember exactly what. And she talked to me perhaps one hour. And after 1 hour, I wanted to leave. And it was so sad for me that I decided to come back and to come back to the house and not to go to the place for the games. Because it was so sad to see my mother completely drunk in this bar with many tattoos as the man. As a man, for me, the man was her comment dire, I don't know the name.
Lover?
Lover, a lover. And what I can say, indefinitely, it was the last day I saw my mother, because the same day, on the night, she died. She was murdered by a man. Not this man with the long hair, but another man. And it's a very sad story, but I think it's a good story. It's not so bad, because definitely I saw my mother one time in 7 years, and it was the last day for her. And it's not so bad, because for many people, you know, your mother can die, but you are not here. And so I saw my mother the last day she died, and it's a story I want to perhaps not write, but to explain to other child who are in this place of, I don't know the name, I'm sorry, but I make a documentary now about people who are separate from their parents, and I try to explain that it's a good thing to see your parents and perhaps to talk, only to talk, perhaps it could be the last time, but it's not a bad thing to try to talk with your parents or your family. That's the story.
Right, well, just down the corner from this place here, right, there was a great pub, well known around Limerick circles, like Joe Malone's. Great trendy place for hippies and stuff in the late 60s, early 70s, right up to the 80s and that. It was a great crack, right? And next door to that pub was a small little sweet shop, real old time sweet shop. And it was my grandmother's place, and she lived 2 doors down from that. So I spent an awful lot of time down here when I was growing up, helping out the grandmother in the shop and all that kind of thing. So the street was very trodden down, very old, very decadent looking, like, I mean, it was right in bad shape. And all my family had grown up in this house, and there was about 11 in the family. So when Angela's Ashes came out, there was an awful lot of controversy about the accuracy of the book itself, and things weren't really as bad as portrayed in the book like that. Now, there was a lot of denial involved in it. I mean, there was a lot of people maintained that it was taking advantage of the thing. But my father told me a story about my uncle, and it was just on that thing. The street now was this was living in a tenement area at the time, like. And my uncle, at about, 7 or 8 years of age, he got scarlet fever, which is a very serious thing at the time. So St. Camillus was the place where you brought everyone for TB and all that kind of thing. So they brought the uncle out to the hospital, right? Put him in. He had to be put into quarantine straight away because it was very contagious and potentially fatal, as far as I know, like. So they literally took my uncle off my grandmother, right? Without any ceremony whatsoever in the meantime. Took him into isolation, right? Told my grandmother to go away, gave her no information about how he was, how comfortable he was, when she could see him. She was actually told that she's not allowed to visit him, and no one from the family had no contact with anybody, and that they would be in touch with her. My uncle, I think my father said, I can't remember the time he actually spent there. It was either 6 weeks or 3 months or something like that, but he was in quarantine for a long time. Never once did he get a word from the hospital. When they ever tried to inquire, they were told that there's no information. This is just the way things were accepted at the time. And whenever that period was up, whether it was 6 weeks or whatever period of time it was, my grandmother was knocking the door one day in the meantime, and my grandmother answered the door, and there was a kind of a waif outside the door, which she thought was, for a minute, was a bigger kid, and she nearly showed him away. It was actually her own son, and he was in short pants, an old woolly jumper, and no shoes. And they literally, when he was better outside in the hospital, they gave him no information and all the time. Took him over the bed, put the same clothes on him that he went in with, and just sent him off down home on his own. I just thought that's shocking, and if that happened today, you could be appalled by it. But that was considered the norm at the time. You didn't question authority, you didn't question anything at the meeting, that was it. So it's a short story, and the reason it popped into my head was just this street, like, this is where they lived. Sinead.
Joo, eli mä oon Hiltonissa töissä, eli se on hieno hotelli ainakin mun mielestä. Mä olin siellä kesätöissä ja mun mielestä se on hyvä paikka olla kesätöissä. Ja menisin aina pyörällä kesällä. Mä olin kerran lähdössä töistä. Iloisena oli hyvä päivä ja jotenkin tosi kaunista ja pyöräilin siitä Hiltonin pihasta poispäin. Ja sitten mä katsoin, että onpas kivoja lokkeja, että noin ne kivasti laulaa. Mun mielestä se on aina sellainen ihana kesän merkki. Sitten mä näin siinä maassa, tai siinä niinku tien laidassa mä näin lokin poikasen. Voi onpas söpöä, että ihanaa. Et jotenkin mä olin ihan täynnä onnea ja sellaista kesäisyyttä. Sitten sit mä katsoin sitä poikasta, sit yhtäkkiä kuuluu sellainen hirveä rääkynä. Sitten mä katson ylöspäin. Siinä on joku 5 lokkia, jotka parveilee mun ympärillä. Sitten mä että voi ei, että nää on niinku varmaan ton emo ja jotain sukulaiset. Ja sit mä ajattelin, no ei tässä mitään. Sitten ne rupee rääkyä kovempaa ja sit yhtäkkiä lentää yksi lokki mun pään yli. Voi ei, mä pyöräilen kovempaa. Okei, no nyt mä oon ohittanut sen lokin, se oli jäänyt jo sinne se poikainen sinne pidemmälle. Sitten meni alamäkeen. Sitten yhtäkkiä mä pelkäsin hirveästi niitä rääkyisiä mun ympärille isot lokit. Ja sitten mä pyöräilin siis ilman kypärää. Mä tunnen yksi lokki tarttuu mun päästä kiinni kynsillään. Ja mä pyöräilen, mä tiedän mitä mä voin tehdä. Mä pyöräilen, rupean kiljuu, mä pyöräilen lokki päässä, pitää kynsin päässä Hiltonin pihaa. Ja sitten mä pyöräilin vähän aikaa, sit se blokki päästi irti. Sitten mä olin ihan, että mitä just tapahtui. Se oli niin absurdia ja se oli niin freakia ja se oli niin jotenkin kamalaa. Sitten mä olin tärisen siinä. Ja sitten kun mä olin selvinnyt siitä pahimmasta shokista, mä soitin mun parhaalle ystävälle. Mä koitin selittää, että mä just jouduin lokkiparven hyökkäyksen kohteeksi. Ja sitten mun ystävä ei yhtään uskonut sitä. Ja mä olin ihan, että voi ei. Ja sitten mä olin myös tosi häpeissäni, koska mä olin nyt nolannut itteni, koska kaikki työkaverit siellä arvoisessa Hiltonissa näki mut lokki päässä kiljuen pyöräilen pois töistä.
Here's my story called Dancing in LA. Many years ago, I went to see a band that my husband was in, and I was sitting in the auditorium of a very big concert hall. I'm usually very full of words. Now I've got this camera sticking at me, I don't know where to begin. Dancing in LA. I was sitting in the audience, and it was such a good concert that I started to dance. So I stood up, you see, and danced. And they asked me, they being the officials or guards, please ma'am, sit down. So I thought, oh, this is terrible, because I mean, it's music. But I sort of sat down and I thought, no, I can't. And I was like, up. So I thought, I'll just go, because I might be blocking somebody's view, into the aisle. So I was in the aisle and dancing. And they said, please, you'll have to leave. You know, please, ma'am, you'll have to leave. And I went, oh, sorry, you know, being very English. And then I thought, well, I've got a pass. You know, I could go into the back of the stage, and it was quite a smart pass, access all areas, which means I could have gone actually up on the stage. Anyway, they suddenly changed their tune, and it was like, oh ma'am, you know, come this way. And I was very like, okay, all right then. So I got to the side of the stage, and I was like, I mean, it wasn't so much fun because I wasn't really with other people, but there was one very nice man beside me. So I said, this is a great song. And he went, yeah, it's nice. I went, no, it's great. But I said, you have to dance. You have to dance. And I was trying to sort of make him feel kind of like with the music and at ease. Anyway, then the next, and I think the last song, so it'd take me some, 7 or 8 songs to warm up, and then all the other things that happened. The last song came, and I went, now this you've really got to do. And he was like, not really dancing, but smiling at me. And then at the end he said, it's been a pleasure, standing with you. And he's nice, like much smaller than me. I mean, I was in high heels, I remember them, because they were very beautiful, high red heels. And he was in a little brown tan jacket, not very exciting. Anyway, I said to him, okay, bye. So we went off. And when I was later going to find the others in the dressing room, I saw a group of people around this man. So I said to my husband, Jem, I said, who is that man? At the same time as the man went hi to me, and Jem went, you know Bruce Springsteen?
собственная история ужасная просто. Ужасная история. Я, всю свою жизнь несу с собой этот крест, потому что все было в очень далеком детстве. In childhood. Было очень в далеком детстве. А в России есть институт детских садов, в которые родители отправляют всех маленьких детей, чтобы спокойно работать. Туда отправляют маленьких детей, и там они играют с другими детьми, занимаются, едят, спят и все такое. Вечером забирают их дети обратно. В общем, когда ребенок взрослеет, соответственно, уровень его любопытства, особенно к противоположному полу, очень сильно растет. Не знаю зачем, но он все равно растет. Ужасно, в общем. И было очень любопытно, почему в общей спальне всегда сначала заходили девочки, они там что-то делали, но мальчиков не пускали. Было крайне любопытно. Зачем это? Никто не мог объяснить. И никто не старался это объяснить. Оказалось, что они там переодевают, и что-то там не так. Что-то не так у девочек, не так, как у нас. В итоге все случилось так, что после короткого диалога оказалось, что огромная разница в гениталиях, огромная разница, просто катастрофическая. Но мы не знали, что там. Поэтому я и мой друг решили просто проявить инициативу и узнать это, донести до всех. Там была какая-то девочка, честно не знаю, как ее зовут, вообще как это произошло, но договор был такой, что она нам покажет все свое, мы покажем все свое. Но было крайне любопытно, если честно. Собственно, она все это сделала. Показала все, рассказала, по-разному абсолютно. К сожалению, по договору, по-честному, как делают честные люди, нужно было, собственно, мне показать и моему другу. Но сделал только он это. Я не знаю, зачем я это сделал и почему я так поступил подло, но я удовлетворился тем, что он показал. Как бы она с любопытством все это смотрела, и я ничего не показал. И мы потерялись после этого. Мои родители уехали, и я перевелся в другой садик, потом я пошел в школу, потом в другую школу. Сейчас я учусь в институте, и я не знаю, как эту девочку зовут, и я чувствую просто ужасную просто рану в душе, потому что я ее обманул. Так что, если она меня видит, то всегда пожалуйста. Но не знаю, насколько она сейчас будет обрадована этому. И вообще, вдруг ее, может быть, уже нет на земле, а вдруг что-нибудь еще случилось. Но, да, вот это был плохой поступок в моей жизни. Все, спасибо.
I have to do the science project with 2 other girls for my junior cert, and what happened was they were we had to pick all the names out of a hat as to who was going to be in the groups together, just to make sure that it was going to be fair. And the 2 people that I got in my group with are the 2 smartest in the class, so I was so happy. And we started doing the project anyway, and it's to examine the effects of germination on marrowfat peas, and we soaked them in all this different stuff. And we soaked them in water in the fridge and in the incubator, and we soaked them in acid in the fridge and in the incubator, and we soaked them in a base in the fridge and the incubator. And what happened, we tried to make it all as scientific as possible, and we soaked it for different lengths as well. We soaked some for 4 days and some for 2 days, and we took them out of the incubator anyway, and we took them out of all this stuff, and we planted them. And after about 2 days, we started seeing shoots in the ones that had been soaked in acid, and none of the other ones were started growing at all or anything, and they just came up so quickly, and it was really scary. And they started growing really, really big. We had to find new pots for half of them, and a week later they were actually huge, and we were actually really scared because everyone else told us that they wouldn't grow if they were soaked in acid, and they were but this happens, and it only happens in 3 of the pots, the ones that have been soaked for 4 days in acid. And eventually all this little green stuff and pink stuff started coming out of them, all this I don't know what you'd describe it as. It was the stuff on the lilies, the stuff that stains clothes. Eventually they had to kill them because they started growing too big to be kept in the lab. I was like, okay, but I think we have to do another one now because I don't think that counts for our junior cert. Okay. It didn't happen. I just made that up. The ones that were in acid and base haven't grown at all. The ones that were soaked in water did grow.
Once upon a time, no. Non, pas. C'était avant-hier. Jean se promène en Ardennes, c'est très loin là-bas dans le sud où il y a des forêts et tout ça. Et il est assez malheureux, ça va pas très bien dans sa vie. Et bon, il est sur les bords des chemins, il a plu, c'est désolant, quoi, c'est désolant. Sa maison perce l'eau et tout, et ça va pas, quoi. Et il se promène le soir, là il rentre, il a fait à moitié beau, il a fait un peu plus vieux et tout. Et puis tout d'un coup, il voit un crapaud. Hein, bah tiens. Et lui, comme il est dans sa tête, il dit, qu'est-ce que tu fais là? Le crapaud lui dit, je t'attendais. Ouais, pourquoi? Je sais pas, on devait se rencontrer. Ah, et pourquoi? Je sais pas. Et le crapaud le regarde et lui dit, fais-moi un bisou. Non, il dit, bah, généralement malheureux comme je suis, je peux faire un bisou au crapaud, hein. Et bon, Marie-Henriette, tel le prince charmant apparaît, et lui dit, tu sais, j'ai été enchaîné il y a 100 ans. Et voilà, je suis à toi pour la vie, et j'ai un peu de fortune. Et comme c'était avant-hier, évidemment, elle dit, c'était pas la banque Fortis, hein. Ah, bon, d'accord. Et alors, il rentre au village, il est quand même bien content, et alors, bon, voilà, on va pouvoir redémarrer l'exploitation, ils ont des projets d'avenir. Même les vaches guérissent. Tous les animaux sont en forme, c'est extraordinaire. Il a un copain Jean, quand même devient un peu jaloux au café, là, chez le Jules. Ouais, mais bon, comment t'as fait? Bah, je me promenais, quoi, j'étais triste, et puis voilà, j'ai rencontré quelqu'un. Ah ouais. Ah ouais, d'accord. Alors, il se dit qu'il est triste, le Jean. Il se dit que ça va pas dans sa vie. Alors que c'est pas vrai, il est riche, il a des arbres, il a des forêts, il a des champs. Il a tout, quoi. Mais il est tellement égoïste et tellement avare qu'il n'a pas rencontré de femme. Alors il se dit, je vais peut-être en rencontrer une comme ça. Et alors, il se dit, bah tiens, je vais me promener aujourd'hui, il fait pas beau, il fait pas vraiment pluvieux, et puis je suis triste et tout. Alors, hop, il va se promener. Et alors, il fait semblant de parler tout seul. Oh, ça va pas, et puis il y a un crapaud qui est là qui fait, ah, Jean, je t'attendais. Ah oui, bonjour. Et pourquoi tu m'attendais? Mais parce qu'on devait se rencontrer. Ah, et tu veux que je t'embrasse? Oui, oui. Et Jean embrasse le crapaud, et ça fait 2 nouveaux crapauds dans les forêts d'Ardennes.
I suppose it's language again, really, more than anything else. I talk to you, the camera. Yeah, to you. Yeah. Yeah, that when we were young, my mother sort of told us, you know, that certain things are dangerous, like you mustn't touch an iron, and you've got to be careful of plugs with electricity and gas and matches and things. And she was, you know, she said that electricity was really dangerous and it could kill you. So I shared the room with my younger sister, and my dad had like rigged up this light that you could, that instead of going to the door to switch the light off, he'd rigged up this other light so we could reach it from our bed. That was just like a wire hanging down with like a switch on it, and we always used to play with it. We used to swing it across the room, and then one day when I was just in there swinging it across the room, and the thing came off and I got an electric shock, and I just thought, well, you know, God, that was the end, really. So, and I was just like, after that I just really misbehaved badly because I thought I was going to die. And then a few days later my mother asked me what was wrong, because she said, you've been misbehaving so much. And I said, well, because I'm going to die. She said, what do you mean you're going to die? I said, well, I got an electric shock a couple of days ago and I'm going to die from it. But because the thing was that she'd forgotten to mention that it happens immediately.
Все равно вы больше никого не найдете здесь. Вот. Ну, мы вообще находимся в замечательном месте. Тут наверняка найдется куча креативных людей с замечательными историями. Вот. Ну, у меня такой неожиданный вопрос, как бы, о чем можно рассказать. Ну, самое первое, что мне пришло в голову, то, что, в принципе, о своей жизни, ну, как-то и не скромно, и, в принципе, ну, как-то невозможно найти таких событий, которые прям раз так взял и выложил. То, что хочется рассказать, это то, что вот моя жизнь полна вообще замечательными людьми. Меня окружают какие-то, ну, совершенно удивительные, нельзя сказать создания, но люди. И из-за этого как бы моя жизнь становится интересной, потому что они приносят мне какие-то совершенно какие-то потрясающие события. Вот я, пожалуй, о них могу рассказать. Моя жизнь — это мои друзья. Мои друзья, ну, наверное, не занимают процентов, наверное, 50. То есть 50 семья, 50 друзья. Вот. Последний какой-то такой вот удивительный случай, который со мной случился, это я познакомилась с парнем, он звукорежиссер. Звукорежиссер увлекается фотографией. И он один раз звонит мне, значит, весна, вот, ну, не очень давно. И вечером уже что-то такое, значит, неурочное такое время. А у меня так случилось, что как бы вот я одна. Он говорит: слушай, говорит, хочешь на Северный полюс? А он такой нестандартный человек. А я, в общем, в принципе, такая достаточно обычная девушка. Я говорю: в каком смысле? Ну, вот так вот, в прямом. На Северный полюс хочешь? Ну, давай, ну, съездим. И, значит, мы встретились с ним. Ну, я расспрашивать даже бесполезно, потому что ход его мыслей, как бы, вот, есть люди, у которых что-то спрашиваешь и знаешь, что получишь в ответ, а здесь совершенно другая ситуация, то есть прям противоположная. То есть я его что-то спрашиваю, он что-то отвечает, и я, в принципе, не могу создать общей картины, и ничего не понимаю. Ну, едем, значит, долго-долго едем, под Москвой же, близко где-то, не могу сказать, по какому, ну, как бы, месту, не могу сказать, могу ссылку дать на фотографии в результате, которые получились. Приезжаем на какой-то, это карьер, это какой-то такой белый песок, приехали в результате ночью уже. И совершенно какие-то вообще нереальные ощущения, то есть это действительно такие на вид горы снега, а он как бы человек киношный, ему как бы важна картинка, и вот картинка получается, что это такие абсолютно лунные какие-то пейзажи, какая-то вот стройка, рабочая техника, то есть никого нету, луна такая круглая, здоровая, фотографии какие-то получились, что вообще марсианские хроники, какие-то база, все это в снегу, какие-то горы, и в общем, и в результате реально я побывала вот недавно совсем в мае месяце под Москвой на Северном полюсе. Вот такая история.
Tu es prêt à l'histoire? Alors, vous êtes aussi prêts? Alors, l'histoire que je vous raconte, c'est une histoire à une copine, à une copine, à une copine. Et une fois, cette copine, à une copine, à une copine, avait une boa. C'est une vraie histoire quand même. Hein. Elle s'est acheté une boa quand elle était encore tout petite. C'est ces serpents qui mangent la nourriture en entier et puis ils digestent pendant, je sais pas, ça dépend. Et elle avait un comme ça, mais un tout jeune et tout. Et alors, elle lui achetait régulièrement, tous les quelques semaines, une petite souris qu'elle avalait en entier et qui restait puis quelques semaines, elle ne mangeait pas. Et puis de nouveau, donc, après quelques semaines, elle lui achetait de nouveau un souris ou un rat, des choses comme ça. Et ce bois, il grandissait et grandissait et grandissait. Et un jour, il ne mangeait plus. Il arrêtait à manger. Alors la copine avait un peu peur qu'elle était malade ou elle ne comprenait pas, mais elle n'est pas encore allée chez le docteur, chez le vétérinaire. Bon, quelques semaines après, un jour, elle se réveille le matin et elle trouve son boa à côté d'elle, dans le lit, tout aligné comme ça. Et là, elle dit, mais là, mon boa, il est vraiment malade, il faut que je l'amène chez un vétérinaire. Alors, elle prend son boa, elle le met dans un cage, dans la voiture. Ah oui, parce qu'il faut savoir que ce boa, il se baladait toute seule dans l'appartement, bien sûr. Alors elle l'amène chez le vétérinaire, elle raconte l'histoire que là ça fait plusieurs semaines ou mois, je ne sais, je connais pas les dimensions de semaines, qu'elle ne mange plus et que justement ce matin elle l'a trouvée tout allongée à côté d'elle dans le lit. Le docteur il est un peu comme ok, vous savez qu'est-ce qui se passe là madame? En fait ce boa il se prépare à manger un truc un peu plus grand. Et c'est pour ça qu'il ne mange plus les petites souris. Et en fait, il s'est allongé à côté de vous dans le lit pour voir s'il est assez grand pour vous avaler. C'est une vraie histoire.
My name is Alexandra. I'm 16 years old. And I want to tell you a story about my first love. I have last summer in Poland on a youth exchange. I have met one boy from France. His name is Michel, and we have spent there 10 days, and nobody thought that it can be some kind of relation. It was just for summer. We like to be together, and after we were sending SMS, letters, and calling each other, and after I came to France for Christmas, then he came here at March. Then I spent 1 month of this summer in France. So we see quite frequently, but it's not a lot anyway. And he's working in Navy, and he will leave next year to the sea. And it's very sad for me, and I didn't finish my school here. But yesterday we spoke, and he told me that if I want and if I can find possibility, I can move to France. And I'm very young, and I don't know what decision should I take now, but this makes me happy, and it's the first experience of serious relations in my life. That's all at the moment. Maybe after some years I will tell you how much children do we have.
Alors, une maman avec sa fille vont acheter une poupée. Ils rentrent dans le magasin et la fille dit « Oh, je veux celle-ci de poupée ». Alors la maman elle dit « Mais tu es sûre? Elle a 3 ongles noirs. » Et puis la petite fille elle dit « Mais oui, je veux celle-ci, comme ça lui donnera une personnalité. » Et puis il dit « Bon, d'accord. » Ils vont à la caisse et le monsieur lui dit « Alors cette poupée, il faudra bien que tu l'attaches au mur, avec une grosse chaîne. » Alors la petite fille elle dit « D'accord, d'accord. » Et après, le soir, sa maman lui dit alors va vite attacher ta poupée et après tu viens manger le souper. Elle dit d'accord, elle va l'attacher et puis après ils vont manger le souper et puis après elle va au lit. Et puis après la nuit elle dit oh c'est bon maman elle a fermé la porte et elle va vite détacher toutes les chaînes et elle prend sa poupée dans son lit. Et puis après elle s'endort très vite. La nuit elle se passe très bien pour la petite fille. Mais la poupée, elle va se régaler. Et puis le matin, la poupée a 5 ongles noirs. C'est fini. Parce que elle l'a tuée et puis quand elle tue une petite... elle avait déjà tué 4 filles parce qu'elle a à chaque fois un ongle noir quand elle tue quelqu'un.